So we're learning Igeres HaKodesh, chapter 15. Igeres, the 15th letter, Tesvav, page Kuf Chof Aleph. In the middle of that, the Alter Rebbe discusses these letters. Is there about tzedakah, tefillah, Torah? It's interesting. He inserts, or the children inserted here as part of the 32 letters, this 15th letter. It's all about the Sefiros. It's all about the Sefiros. So in a sense, it seemingly seems out of place, but it's here, and maybe we'll come up with an explanation as we conclude the chapter. But on the other hand, it's very valuable because it's a source for the whole concept of Sefiros. And when you learn Chassidus, when you learn Torah Baal Shem Tov, any of Torah Baal Shem Tov, any Chassidus, without learning about the Sefiros and understanding about the Sefiros, you're missing the DNA of Chassidus. You can be a practicing chassid, and you can know general ideas, but if you don't have the kishkis, because the whole chassidus is based on this concept of the 10 Sefiros. So this Perek Tesvav in Igeres HaKodesh is a very important Perek in understanding about the Sefiros. Why it's included here, and why is it included kind of smack in the middle? It's the letter 15 out of 32. I don't know right now. I didn't get a chance to look at this on Shabbos, but it's Hashem. So let's just begin learning. I'm going to go, as I said, on the quicker side and the slower side, because otherwise it'll bog us down. Tesvav, Igeres HaKodesh Tesvav, page Kuf Chof Aleph. Lahovin Moshul u'Melitza Divrei Chachomim v'Chidosam. To understand, there's four things here. Moshul is a parable. Melitza is how do you say melitza? In Hebrew, there's a word melitza, right? Yes, sir, melitza. It's a form of expressing an idea. Divrei Chachamim is number 3. Words of the sages, of wise men, V'chidosam is, and their riddles, velvel, and their riddles. Now, these 4 things are employed in Torah. In our holy Torah, in the Torah HaKodesh, you have Mishlei of Shlomo HaMelech. So the word Moshul is Mishlei, parables. You have Divrei Chachamim. So there are different forms in which the Torah expresses itself. So the Alter Rebbe says, Lahavin Moshul Melitza Divrei Chacham v'Chidosam. In which matter, being Sefiros. Regarding the Sefiros. In other words, we're going to look at Misholim, we're going to look at Melitzas, we're going to look at Divrei Chachamim, we're going to look at Chidosam in regard to the topic of Sefiros emanations. Umayda Azois, so to Lahavin, to understand this, Umayda Azois. When the Alter Rebbe says, well, Moida Zois means it's known. It's like, who is it known to? Those who study Kabbalah. See this? Moida Zois, Ba'oretz, Mi Pikdoishe El Yinish Maseiden, Lekarev Ktsas El Aseichel. It's known on earth from the mouths of the supernal holy ones whose souls are in Eden, Lekarev Tzas El Emes, as shuffle. So the Alter Rebbe is referring to Mekubalim and Chassidish Rebbes, those that were in touch with these ideas and studied these ideas and used Misholim. So it's known in their name, in their teachings, Mai Dechsiv, regarding a verse, and this is probably the most frequent used verse in Chabad Chassidus, quote, Umipsori, and from my flesh, Echze Elaka, I see God. We see godliness. Shahakavona, so the Alter Rebbe says, what is the meaning in this verse? From my flesh I perceive godliness. Shahakavona, who he, lahaving tzas elikusa yizborich. The pasuk is teaching that you need that the intent of the pasuk, the kavana in the pasuk is that we can have a little understanding. Lahaving tzas. Alikusi is barich of Hashem's holiness. Great. Min nefesh hamlubeshes bebasar ha'adam, from the nefesh, from the soul that's invested in flesh of man. Mipsari. Right? Isser, but pashtus, psari goes on what? On your rubbing your hands now, on your hands. The Alter Rebbe teaches here, Isser, not that way. Not just on the rubbing your hands, your physical hand. Mipsari is what is felt and what can be understood from the hands, from the flesh, the neshama. Because the neshama makes the hands go this way and that way and everything else. The rotzenship and the neshama, whatever, they're not going into levels and dargas and faculties. So mipsari is a trigger for the neshama. And from that neshama that's invested in the goof, in the body, and if we understand how the body works, Velvel, and both of you are doctors who understand the genetics more of the body and everything, you understand that more and more and more, this opens up the ability to see more of Hashem. And this is an amazing thought, Chevre, because you would think, Hillel, that the body, the guf, is a helem, is a concealment for Hashem. Now here you see, I want you to open your eyes to what the Alter Rebbe is saying here. That Titus HaBaal Shem Tov gave us the ability to see God in the helem, in the body. And without Titus HaChassidus, it's very hard to see God in the helem. And that's why pre-Chassidus, the body was scorned at. And if the body had a taiva, you said, ich, away body. And what did they do? They tortured the body. The body was the antithesis of God. Yes, Hillel, Isser.
The way that you're explaining it sounds very much, in a way, like Rabbi Tatz explained once on a shir, the anthropomorphism that we see in the Chumash, that people commonly, and he explained it, make the mistake of saying that the Chumash speaks in terms that we can understand. So when it says Hashem's hand, we have a hand. So this word says no, we have a hand, so we can understand that what Hashem is, not the other way around. Our hand just gives us a small taste of the hand of Hashem, which is a real hand. Ours is the metaphor. His is the real one.
It's exactly the way Chassidus sees it. Very good. Yes. And by the way, Velvel, that concept is miyused on a shalom. The Rebbe always quoted the shalom, the Shnei Luchas Abris, that says, HaTorah medaberes, this is the wording of the shalom, I believe. HaTorah medaberes b'tachtonim. The Torah speaks about the lower, the physical, the world, umeramezes le'elyonim, and it alludes to elyonim, so to the upper. That's a word from the Shalom. From there it goes down. But again, if you didn't learn the Shalom, and most people didn't, and they weren't trained that way, they weren't interested that way, they were interested only in Shor Shenagah Chasapora, and what's the halacha, you didn't think that way. And came along the Baal Shem Tov, Teresa Baal Shem Tov, and he started to introduce that and teach that, and then the Maggid with his Talmidim and all of that. So then we had a paradigm shift in the way we look at that hand, as you said earlier. Let's continue. Pi Maimer Azal, says the Alter Rebbe, I'm not just Moida Zois. The Alter Rebbe says Moida Zois. It's known if you're in touch with the Rebbes and the Mekubalim, and you're around the Bati Medrashim of the Mekubalim, Shara Shemayim, and Yerushalayim, and you'll hear them speaking. And what if you're in Bet Shemesh or in Boston or in New Mexico and you're not? How are you going to know about it? Says the Alter Rebbe, Razal. I'll give you a Razal. And this is another amazing thing that we find throughout Tanya, where the Alter Rebbe supports and backs, I'm not saying everything, but much of what he writes with a Chazal. So he says, Al Pi Ma'amer Razal, Al Posek, Borchi Nafshi es Hashem, Tehillim, right? We just said it, Rosh Chodesh. Say Chazal, Ma HaKodesh Baruch Hu Memale es Aguf, es Ha'olam, Af HaNeshama Memale es Aguf. Just as Hashem fills the world, created and filled the world, and so too the neshama fills the body. So the Alter Rebbe says, here is a chazal which alludes to the same concept. Now he goes, the Alter Rebbe goes a step further. For those that are interested in that study and want to know what the Zohar says, he says, there's a statement in Zohar based on a posuk in Bereshis, quote, "Vayipach bi'apov nishmas chayim." Hashem blew within the nostrils of Adam, the breath of life. Says the Zohar HaKodesh, "Man de nofach," someone who blows, mitoicha nofach, he blows from his most inner core. Vafilu nefesh de asiya, you hear this, and even a soul of the lowest of the four worlds, called asiya, he bo mizivuk zocher v'nekeva de asiya. It comes from the union of male and female. Zayin Vav Nun is an acronym from zocher v'nekeva, and we pronounce it in Chabad and those that study Chassidus, zun. So if you ever hear Zun to this, Zun to that, it's a reference to this acronym, Zayin Vav Nun Zav Nukva, Zun. So the Alter Rebbe says that even a Nefesh Dasiya, you're talking about kind of Hillel, a low-level soul, an ordinary guy in the street. Says the Alter Rebbe, you should know that even a Nefesh Dasiya, he says Va'afilu, a nefesh dasiya, it comes mizivuk zun dasiya. V'hamoichen shelehem sheim pchinas chaya uneshama dezun. And there's the midos of the entity, and there's the moach, the mind of the entity. And the Alter Rebbe is saying, basically, without going into the Kabbalah, that it's associated with the higher. That's the point he's trying to make. I don't want to lose the trend of thought. The trend of thought is that what you see b'tachteinim, what you see on earth, the mashal u'malitza, divrei chachamim v'chidoisam, it's only a riddle, Hillel. But in this riddle, it alludes and expresses the greatest idea. And the greatest idea can only be perceived through the riddle, through the wise words, through the mashal. And he says they are actually just the backside, the sentiment of the the kelim of the Zundat Silas, Shehei Melikus Mamish. But the kelim are also godly. Shebetoicham Meir Oiris Baruch Hu, within the vessels there shines the infinite light of God. Hamalumish v'gamas v'chochma, that's hidden in wisdom. Datsilus, the Iyu v'garmeu chad. Okay. Iyu is Hashem, or the light. V'garmoi, and his kelim, and his vessels. And those, garmoi literally means Hillel, and his causes. But causes are already a reference to the kelim. Why? Because you have the energy, and you have the result of the energy. So the result of the energy is a cause, right? So that's why it says Iyu, the light, the energy, the or, v'garmohi, and referring to the kelim, chad, ba'atzilus. Where are they chad? In the world of Atzilus. In other words, in lower worlds, Hillel, it's not that way. Avram. In lower worlds, it's not Iyu v'garmoy yichad. There's Iyu v'chayoy yichad, v'iyu v'garmoy yichad. Hashem and his lights are chad, that's throughout the Arba Oilamos, the four worlds. Because the light isn't fathomed by where it shines, right? Whether it's when the sun is out, it shines on the garbage like it shines on a beautiful garden. Why? Because light is not measured by the receptacle, by the recipient. Whereas the kalim, the recipient, does measure the experience, does create the experience. The more refined you are, the better you are. If you got up on the right side in the morning and you feel good, you take it in more. If you feel, excuse the expression, cocky, and moody and all that, no. So the kalim, the kalim are, in a sense, antithetical to or, in a sense. But in Atzilus, in the world of Atzilus, because it's the world that's closest to the Ein Sof, to the infinite, the kalim are subservient to the or. So that's why he says, where do you feel? This, the Alter Rebbe explains, this is why the Zohar HaKodesh says, Iyu v'garmoy yichad, Hashem and his kalim are one. It's an Atzilus. Because there, the kalim don't play a role of being disparate from the or. There, the kalim are one with the or. So too in man's soul, Meir Eiris of Baruch Hu, Hashem's infinity shines, Melubish v'gonus b'ira chokhmah, where within in chokhmah shabol, ahachis is Adam. Within the chokhmah of every person, there rests the or. Umemena yuchol Adam lohaving tzas. Here he goes to Bina, right? And from the place of chokhmah, it breaks through, shines through to man's rationale and intelligence to be able to comprehend tzas. Why, Avram, does he say tzas? Because we're talking about Ein Sof, infinity, or Ein Sof. How can we, man, understand the or Ein Sof? The Alter Rebbe says, you're right. You can't understand it all. Tzas, a little bit. Sefiros elyonos, in the upper Sefiros, Shekulan me'iros b'nishmasei, they all the Sefiros shine in the person's neshama. Haklula mehen, that's incorporative all. Okay. Now he brings, this is seldom, I think it's 2 or 3 places in the entire Sefer Tanya where the Alter Rebbe actually quotes his Rabbi, the Maggid of Mezrich. Here is one of the places. Look. Tzorich lehagdim, we must preface, Masha Shomaiti, what I heard, Mimoiri, from my teacher, Olav Hasholem. When I read this, I'm so humbled, and I share with the world this humility. You know who the Maggid was? The Maggid was a giant of giants. And look how Alter Rebbe addresses him. It's not because he didn't have derech eretz for him. Because, the accolades is all like nonsense. Mighty. He was my teacher. Reminds me of Rabbi Soloveitchik used to say, Rabbi Yasha Ber, Yosef Ber Soloveitchik, the Goin. You know what he would say, Hillel? Ich bin a posheter melamed. I am a simple teacher. That's all I am. Rabbi Soloveitchik, who ordained 2,000 students, so was a genius of geniuses and everything else, was Chaim Brisker's grandson. Ich bin a posheter melamed. When you hear that and you see Alter Rebbe, how he addresses the Maggid, you think about it today. Everyone's in the paper and with the photographs and the picture and Rosh Pegahag and this great thing. You go to a wedding day before they say his name and he makes the bracha. They read 10 lines about the person, or you look at a person's tombstone. They write entire Megillas. It wasn't that way. You should know. It wasn't that way. Go to Russia and Ukraine and look at the kvarim of the tzaddikim and great rabbonim. A few lines, nothing's there. Anyway, I'm just saying, when I come across this, mighty Oliver Sholem. Alter Rebbe should have said, Marava, Magid, Arava, Chosed, Arava, Goin, and all kinds of titles. No, mighty. It's my Rebbe, my teacher. Just something. Yes, Isser.
I joke about what's going to happen when Mashiach comes in as a white donkey, and all the Rebbes are coming in with their entourages of Cadillac Escalades, the black Escalades with their 5 kabayim each. And, poor Mashiach, he's going to feel like, I don't have any punch.
I think Mashiach will be able to handle that too. I'm not worried. Okay. So Mashmaitim in Mighty Olav Sholem, the Alter Rebbe says, I heard from my Rebbe, my teacher of blessed memory, on the Posuk, Avram says, V'anoichi, and I am Ophir, dust, V'Efer, and ashes. She'omer Avram Avinu Sholem, al ha'oris nishmosei, Avram made this comment about his own soul, the emanation of his soul, Hami'ira Begufa, that it shined into his body, Me'oir Chesed Elyon, which came from the supernal light of kindness. V'hi midosoi, and this is Avram's midah, which is midas ava rabba, the midah of an abundance of love. Shahoy, skip the parentheses. Shahoy oyev, next page, 242. Shahoy oyev es HaKodesh Baruch Hu, Avram loved Hashem, ava gedoyla v'elyoyna, tremendous love, kol kach, so much so, achet nasem merkova HaKodesh Baruch Hu, and until he became an actual chariot for Hashem, for God. And you might think that this level of kindness and supernal love in the supernal Sefiros, he may ain v'sug, it is similar and in the same category of Mahus Midas Avarabba Shel Avram Avinu V'Sholom that Avram had, Rak, he could live in the floor, Mimena, didn't catch V'Tachlis K'noida. It's just much greater, beyond, without measurement. Mahus El Yonish Eilem Sof V'Tachlis B'Tzadatzmon. Why? Because since the Midah itself, from Hashem's perspective, is Ein Sof, is infinite, so it's way beyond Meir u'Malupish B'Toicham V'iyu Gamoy Echad. Alter Rebbe says, when it comes to the supernal worlds and the supernal Sefiros, Iyu V'Gamoy Echad, Hashem and His causes are one, as we said earlier, in the world of Atzilus. Mashenke B'Nishmas Ha'odom. Mashenke, conversely, in man's soul, Hamalubesh is b'choymed, that's invested in the physical material. Sheyesh lemidosa kates v'tachlis. It has a limit, so therefore there wouldn't be a comparison. Avol mikol mokim. Nevertheless, you would think shemidoseha, that the attributes hein me'ain v'sug. Again, me'ain means they are similar v'sug, and in the category of midas al yoinos, the supernal midas, right? That's what you would think. So therefore, Avram said, guys, don't make that mistake. V'lesois Omar, and therefore Avram said, V'onoichi ofar v'efer. I am like dust and dashes. And he explains, the kamoisho efer hu mehusay v'atzmusay shel ha'etz, just like ashes, which is the essence of the eitz hanisr of burnt wood. Shahoyim murkav medal, you say this shruch mayim ofar. The wood was initially comprised of the 4 elements of fire, air, water, and dust. V'gimel yesaydos, and the 3 elements of eish mayim ruach, of fire, water, and air, chofu v'holchu, they leave the physical wood when it's burnt, lehem v'kolu, and they are extinguished ba'oshan, in the smoke, hamisavem arkavosam, which is created from the combination of the 3 vis-a-vis the burning of the fire. Kenoidas is known. So what's left? And the fourth element that was initially in the wood, shehu ha'afar shaboy, which is the dust within the wood, hayored lemata, it descends below, ve'ein ha'eish sheiletes boy. Guess what? An amazing thought. I'm not a scientist. I don't know. You guys are more scientific than I in your knowledge and education. But the Alter Rebbe says here that when the fire burns the wood, the offer, velvel, the offer, one of the elements, eish, mayim, ruach, offer is yored. It's not included in the burning process. It kind of separates itself, and it becomes ashes. Whereas the first three, eish, mayim, ruach, when the wood is caught on fire, it's consumed in it, and it's extinguished by it. That's what he says. So he says, boy, hu hanishir kayim, this remains existent, v'hi ha'efer, and this is ashes. So in other words, what the Alter Rebbe is saying, Chaver, is that ashes are the existence of the fourth element known as offer, dust. V'hine, kol mehus ha'etzu mamoshay, the very essence of the wood, and its mamoshut, and its tangibility, v'choimroi, and its corporeality, and its material, v'tzurasa, in its form, ba'oirech v'roirech, in length and its width, v'oivi, and in thickness, shahaya nira le'ayin, which was seen by the eye when you see a piece of wood, a log, whatever, koidim shenisrav, prior, ikaroi, you should know that the primary aspect of this piece of wood that you see, hoyam yesoid ha'ofar shaboy. The ikar is not the eish ruach mayim within the wood, but rather the offer. Rak she'eish mayim ruach klulim boy. It's not that there was no element, no aspect, Hillel, of eish ruach mayim. There was, but it was kolol, it was subordinate, it was inclusive in offer. So, and then when you light the fire, you light this piece of wood on fire, it loses its state of being. Avram, you hear this? It loses its state of being, and what's left is the offer, which turns into afer. And Avram says, oh, noichi, all I am is offer ve'afer. Now the question is why? Why is it that offer, that dust, isn't extinguished like the other three? Says the Alter Rebbe, I'll tell you why. Because offer, dust, is the most corporeal, the most grub, the most material. Has length, width, and depth. Conversely, fire and air, and also water. You have to understand why he says v'gam. Why doesn't he say eish ruach hamayim? Okay, but I don't know, but not right now. Hey, ma'at mizeir be'etz. They're very, to begin with, there's very little of fire, water, and air within the eitz. The whole orkei beroch bevoev, in its entire length and width and thickness, hakol hoyim in offer. It was all from the offer. V'hakol shovel offer. So when it's burnt, it returns back to the offer. Shahu oefer, in the sense that it becomes ashes. And it remains after it's burnt up. Okay, we'll stop here. So basically, I just want to, before we end, what the Alter Rebbe is explaining is that when Avram says, he gives a very elaborate mashal from a fire, a log being burnt. But he's going to get to the point where you cannot compare the midas ha'ava, as it is from Hashem's perspective in its purity, going into Avram, as it's in Avram. And Avram was already a merkava lelikus. And Avram is, the most humble, and all that. But it's still in a form. I think that's what he's going to get out. We'll see tomorrow. Chavra, have a great day. Nice seeing everyone. Sei gesund. Bye-bye.